Mr. Reschenthaler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Whitaker, for being here today. I just want to quickly reference the letter that was sent to you from the chair on January 9th. In this letter, in the chairman's own words, it said that this committee was here to, quote unquote, to conduct oversight of the department. In this letter is also important other topics that were supposed to be discussed here today, like immigration, gun violence, the Violence Against Women's Act, Obamacare, national security, and that's not even the complete list. I know you read the letter. I was excited to be here. I thought these were critically important issues that affected constituents in my district and millions of Americans. And frankly, a lot of these issues are life and death. So I'm really confused as I sit here today in this hearing with my Democrat colleagues focused solely on one topic, and that's the Mueller investigation. I really hope that my friends across the aisle would have used this opportunity for more bipartisanship and less showmanship. But clearly I was wrong. With that said, I want to get to some of the important topics that we were supposed to have focused on today. One of those is sanctuary cities. In my home state of Pennsylvania, the sanctuary city of Philadelphia has released at least 3 child molesters back onto the streets. And everyone knows the tragic story of 32-year-old Kate Steinle, who was murdered by an illegal immigrant who was convicted of 7 felonies and deported 5 times. Now, those child molesters in Philadelphia, the murder of Kate Steinle, they were all released because some city wanted to score cheap political points. And that's why I'm focused on ending sanctuary cities. Mr. Whitaker, what steps is the DOJ taking to end the dangerous practice of sanctuary cities?
Well, first of all, we're ending taxpayer-funded grants to sanctuary jurisdictions. The Attorney General Sessions announced new conditions for our Burn JAG grants that will increase information sharing between federal, state, and local law enforcement to ensure public safety. I don't know if the Congressman knows this, but one of the challenges we have is in a sanctuary jurisdiction, jails will release convicted criminals back into the community instead of informing Immigration and Customs Enforcement that the person is available to be picked up at the jail. It is an incredibly dangerous situation to make an ICE officer go into a community to try to arrest somebody that is here illegally and has been convicted of a crime, oftentimes crimes that, like you mentioned, and I cannot imagine a situation where a mayor or a city council or a county executive or otherwise would put law enforcement officers in harm's way. It is quite frankly bad policy, and we are going to work very hard to end it, and one of the ways we're ending it is by taking away the resources to those jurisdictions that have that policy.
Thank you, Mr. Whitaker. Mr. Whitaker, I have one more question regarding the opioid crisis. This crisis is striking our country hard, particularly southwestern Pennsylvania. Data from 2017 shows that it is more likely now that someone's going to die of a drug overdose than a car crash. My district has been hit really hard. In particular, Fayette County saw an 88% increase in overdose deaths from 2015 to 2017. What steps does the DOJ take to address this shift? And do you think that a lot of the problems that we're seeing in these stats comes from a porous southern border?
To address your second question first, I do believe that most illegal opioids, like fentanyl, non-prescription illegal opioids, like fentanyl, heroin, and their derivatives are imported through our southern border. Some, not a majority, but some are also imported via direct mail, for example, and ordered off the dark net. I went through a list of things that the Department of Justice is doing to combat this opioid epidemic. I hope that this committee, while it's something I was prepared and wanted to talk about, and I appreciate the question, will look at other ways that we can put resources into the opioid crisis. 70,000 people, as you mentioned, have died of drug overdoses. A majority of those are from some form of opioids. And we also, quite frankly, and I mentioned my trip to China last August, we have to work together with the Chinese government to reduce the inflow of fentanyl. And we also have to, we have emergency scheduled right now, the fentanyl analogs, but we need an act of Congress, and I hope that we can get that to make that permanent, that these fentanyl derivatives and creative chemists that change the chemical makeup of fentanyl do not continue to try to evolve their drug to avoid our regulation.
Thank you, Mr. Whitaker.